Hello, happy Sunday, and welcome to our very last recording. I'm with the Squirtle and with Molly. So we got this the finale of our Sunday stories. So I hope everyone's having a good day. It was chucking it down with rain earlier on,
Now it's
thankfully
boiling.
it's dried up now. It's got really warm, isn't it? We've just had the kind of like our quick family quiz. So we're just going to record this because we've got another quiz later on. We've got a quiz.
Yeah.
with
Our
the other
round
side
is
of the
going to
family.
be like an emoji round where like
Oh,
got
yes,
loads of emojis. And
Yes,
then,
we've just been deciding which emojis to do. So we're going to do films, but in the form of emojis, aren't we?
so say like Toy Story, like maybe just 2 toys and then a book.
Well, we kind of sort of thought with Toy Story there you get Rex the dinosaur. Don't know why I'm doing that, as if that's a dinosaur. That's a dinosaur.
I did Pam, the pig.
Yes, pig.
I don't-
cowboy. Is there a cowboy one?
Yeah, Woody.
Yeah.
I didn't do that because
No.
I couldn't really find any.
No.
I think
true.
I think there was.
There might have been a cowboy. Anyway, that's what we've got to do later on. But back to the present, we've got so as it's the finale, we started off with 3 books. Then some weeks we had 4 books, but as it's the finale, we're doing 5 books today. But they're not super long. So we have got 5 stories today. Molly's just put them in order. First book we weren't kind of sure which ones to do, but we kind of sort of thought I'm tapping some of the classics. So if you're not familiar with Flat Stanley, it's one of the classics. So Flat Stanley,
Hilarious.
can't remember the name of the person that wrote it. Can't remember, but
From there you can see how
it's by Jeff Brown. There we go.
how flat he is.
He is
just
very
from that.
flat. He's very flat. Right, so Flat Stanley. And we've got 2 tiger books today. The rather beautiful There's a Tiger in the Garden by Lizzie Stewart. That's quite short. And it feels really beautiful. I don't really, that probably doesn't show at home. But it's just
You can hear it.
yeah, exactly. It just feels really nice. This, I picked this one off the shelf. Do you know this one?
No.
Right, you'll love this one.
Probably
You'll
pretty.
love it. It's really, really pretty. But the kind of like the pages are,
Okay.
but the pages are on like kind of greaseproof paper. Let me show you kind of sort of second. You'll see that the pages are sort of see through.
Oh my goodness. Very nice.
They're kind
Yeah, just look at there. Like
Yeah.
you can see the other bit.
But you'll see. But yeah, if
that the picture or not?
you've got to kind of work out each one. You've got to work out what it is.
Yeah,
So,
behind there.
so The Foggy Forest by Nick Sharratt. I haven't seen much of Nick Sharratt for kind of years. Those people who are into the Tracy Beaker books, Nick Sharratt is the guy that illustrates the. So he's kind of more famous really now for all of the Tracy Beaker stuff, the Jacqueline Wilson books. Again, tapping the classics. Anybody that hasn't read Guess How Much I Love You you need this in your book collection. It's just a beautiful book.
I did a puzzle of that.
Yes, you did. Yeah, we've given it to Grandpa now, haven't we? But brilliant Sam McBratney book. Again, they kind of like there's a TV series of
I
that
think
as well.
that's the exact picture. But I didn't know. I think the dad is the exact bit.
Yeah.
I think he's like lying down and going backwards because he's
Yes,
so
he
close.
might be on his back. Yes, no. So it's all the story of the little brown nut brown hare. And this is one of my little guilty pleasure books. No longer in print. This book. I don't understand why, because I think it's beautiful. Just beautiful pictures, lovely story, but no longer in print. I found it in it's one of those ones where genuinely found it in an old dusty bookshop, kind of like once, and I just think it's lovely. So we're going to finish off with The Dancing Tiger. So, but we're starting with Flat Stanley.
This short.
It's the longest of these books here, but it's not short. Okay, are we ready? Flat Stanley. There we go. Hey, come and look! Arthur Lambchop called from the bedroom he shared with his brother Stanley. Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop cared greatly for politeness and correct speech. Hay is for horses, Arthur, not people, said Mrs. Lambchop. But look, said Arthur, pointing. Across Stanley's bed lay his enormous bulletin board. It had fallen on Stanley during the night. Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop hurried to lift it from the bed, but Stanley wasn't hurt. "What's going on here?" he said cheerfully, sitting up. "Heavens!" cried Mrs. Lambchop. "Gosh!" said Arthur. "Stanley's flat." "As a pancake," said Mr. Lambchop. "Darndest thing I've ever seen." Mrs. Lambchop sighed and said, "Let's all have breakfast, then we'll hear what Dr. Dan has to say." In his office, Dr. Dan examined Stanley. "How do you feel?" he asked. "I feel sort of tickly after I got up," Stanley said, "but I feel fine now." "Well, that's mostly how it is with these cases," said Dr. Dan. The nurses took Stanley's measurements. He was 4 feet tall, about a foot wide, and 1.5 inches thick. Oh, no, sorry, and 1/2 inch thick. That's really, 1/2 inch is about that. It's about how thick he is. Being flat could be fun. Stanley enjoyed going in and out of rooms by sliding through the crack at the bottom of the door. Arthur tried too, but he just banged his head. Being flat could be exciting. During the holidays, Stanley was invited to his friend Thomas in California. Mr. Lambchop brought home an enormous brown paper envelope and said, "Stanley, try this on for size." The envelope fitted Stanley very well, and the next morning his parents slid him into it along with an egg salad sandwich and posted him from the box on the corner.
You can fit inside an envelope.
Stanley had a fine time in California. He's there sunbathing. His feet rather stick up, well, that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
He's had a nice scream, he's gone in the car with his sunglasses, and he's being used as a surfboard by his cousin there. Thomas's family returned him in a beautiful white envelope that they'd made themselves. They marked it airmail and wrote "valuable" and "this end up" on both sides. In the park one Sunday afternoon, Stanley and Arthur watched some boys flying big kites. "Someday," Arthur said, "I'd like to have a big kite." "You can fly me, Arthur," Stanley said. "Come on." He gave Arthur the spool and attached the string to his arms. Then he ran across the grass to catch the wind. Up, up, up went Stanley. Arthur let out all the string, and Stanley soared high above the trees. Everyone stood still to watch. It's a very good kite. But Arthur got tired of running with the empty spool. Wedging it in the fork of a tree, he went off for a hot dog. He didn't notice when Stanley became tangled in the branches of the tree. Half an hour passed before Arthur heard Stanley's shouts and climbed up to set him free. Arthur apologised over and over again that evening, but Stanley was still cross.
Look at his legs
Look
there.
at his legs.
They're really pointy.
Funny. The next morning, Stanley and Mr. Lambchop met their neighbour, Mr. O.J. Dart, the director of the famous Museum of Art. Mr. Dart looked worried. "Another valuable painting was stolen from the famous museum last night," he told Stanley and his father. "The police suspect a gang of sneak thieves. They work at night by sneakery, which makes them very difficult to catch." Stanley had an idea. He explained it to Mr. Dart. "Excellent," said Mr. Dart. We'll try out your plan tonight." I think I already know what his plan is. That evening, in the main hall of the museum, Mr. Dart showed Stanley the most expensive painting in the world. Next to it was an empty picture frame. "And now, Stanley," said Mr. Dart, "it's time for your disguise." Stanley showed Mr. Dart the disguise he'd bought. "This is a really good one. My cowboy hat and a red bandana." I was going to say banana there. A red bandana. "I'm sorry," Mr. Dart said, "but we don't have any cowboy pictures here. You must wear the disguise I've chosen." Stanley could hardly speak when he saw Mr. Dart's disguise. "I'll look like a girl," he said. But Stanley was a good sport, so he put it on. What is he going to look like? Oh dear. In the main hall, Stanley climbed into the empty picture frame and stood very still. "Very nice," said Mr. Dart, and he went off to arrange the rest of their plan. Now Stanley was alone. The hall was very dark, but enough moonlight came through the windows for him to see the world's most expensive painting. Maybe the sneak thieves would come, he thought. Then, creak! A glow of yellow lights shone suddenly in the centre of the hall, and a trap door had opened up in the floor. The sneak thieves, carrying lanterns, came up into the hall. The thieves took the world's most expensive painting off the wall. "This is Max," said the first thief, whose name was Luther. In all this great city, there is no one... Sorry. This is it, Max, said the first thief, whose first name was Luther. In all this great city, there is no one to suspect us. Then Luther saw Stanley in his frame. I thought sheep girls were supposed to smile, Max, he said. This one looks scared. Stanley managed a tiny smile. Well, she is smiling, sort of, Max said. And what a pretty little thing she is, too. That made Stanley furious, and in his loudest voice he shouted, "Police! Mr. Dart! The sneak thieves are here!" "Max," Luther whispered, "I think that I heard the sheep girl yell." "Oh boy, yelling pictures. We both need a rest," Max whispered back. "You'll get a rest all right," shouted Mr. Dart, rushing in with lots of policemen. "You'll get arrested, that's what." The sneak thieves were quickly handcuffed and led away to jail. The next morning, Stanley Lambchop got a medal from the Chief of Police. The day after that, his picture was in all of the newspapers. Flat hero. For a while, Stanley was famous. People would point out and whisper, "Over there, Agnes, Stanley Lambchop, the one who caught the museum robbers," and things like that. But then people began to make fun of him. "Hi, Super Skinny," they would call. Mean. Late one night, Arthur woke to the sound of Stanley crying. "What's wrong?" he said. Stanley sighed. "I want to be a regular shape again, like other people. It's not fair." "You're brave," Arthur said. "You really are." And then Arthur had an idea. He turned on the light and ran to the big toy box in the corner. He tossed aside toy soldiers, aeroplanes and boat models. "Got it," he said, holding up an old bicycle pump. "OK," Stanley said after a moment, "but take it easy." He stood with the end of the hose in his mouth, clamping his lips tightly so no air could escape. Arthur began to pump. "If it hurts or anything, wiggle your hand," he said. Stanley's top half began to swell. Stanley got bigger and bigger. His pyjama buttons burst off. Pop, pop, pop. Soon he was all rounded out except for his right foot. He shook the foot twice and it swelled to match the other one. There stood Stanley Lambchop as if he'd never been flat at all. "Thank you, Arthur," Stanley said. "Thank you very much." Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop came in to see what the boys were up to so late at night. "George," said Mrs. Lambchop, "Stanley's round again." "I'm the one who did it," Arthur said. "I blew him up." Mrs. Lambchop made hot chocolate. Mrs. Lambchop made hot chocolate to celebrate, and several toasts were drunk to Arthur for his cleverness. When the little party was over, Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop tucked the brothers back into bed and turned out the light. "Good night," they said. "Good night," said Stanley and Arthur. And very soon all the Lambchops were asleep. And that was the first adventure of Flat Stanley. They after that picture book, they then went on to make sort of books of Flat Stanley. So I don't know if whether they happen before Arthur kind of gets him popped up again,
I'm guessing he turns,
or whether he keeps
flat
going
again.
flat. Do they keep on dropping the bulletin board on him? I don't know. Right, this, as we say, it's just beautiful. Just beautiful. Just see if you can see kind of it's just got a really lovely feel about it. Some books are just lovely. Right, there's a Tiger in the Garden by Lizzie Stewart. As I say, two tiger books today. Nora is bored. "There's nothing to do here, Grandma," she says matter-of-factly. "Jeff the giraffe is bored too." It could almost be about lockdown, this, couldn't it? 'Cause we're all a bit bored. "Why don't you play in the garden?" said Nora's grandma. "I thought I saw a tiger there earlier." "A tiger?" asked Nora. "There's no tiger in the garden. I'm too old for silly games." "Well, I'm sure I saw one," she replies. "And dragonflies the size of birds and plants that can swallow you up whole. And a polar bear who likes fishing, though he's a bit grumpy. But most magnificent of all was the tiger. You and Jeff should take a look, if you don't believe me." There was a dragonfly around here earlier on. Huge, great thing. "She's being silly, Jeff," says Nora, standing outside in the garden. "There's no tiger here, just the same boring old garden, with boring old plants and boring old..." Whoosh! Something whizzes past Nora's face. It's a dragonfly. All right, I was quite as big as that. It was a big dragonfly, but not as big as that. "Wow," says Nora. So you've got dragonflies and butterflies. And Jeff the giraffe.
That's both of me and Emily's classes.
Oh, it is, yeah. No, you're right, yeah. Well, Nora says to Jeff, there might be dragonflies as big as birds, but I know for a fact that there aren't any plants that'll eat a sole or a grumpy polar bear, and there's definitely no tiger. Come on, Jeff, let's go home. Jeff! Jeff's got caught up. Jeff, I've got to get him back. Fine. So there are dragonflies the size of birds, and that bush definitely wanted to eat you. But I don't see any polar bear, and there's no sign of this ridiculous tiger anywhere. Come on, Jeff, let's go home.
Is he just a toy?
Yeah. Hello, says a gruff, grisly voice. Oh, hello, replies Nora. I suppose you're looking for that wretched tiger, aren't you? Says the polar bear. No one ever comes looking for me. Oh, no, not you as well, shouts Nora. There is no tiger living in my grandma's garden. That is just ridiculous. Tigers live in the jungle, not in the garden. And even though there are dragonflies the size of birds and plants that want to eat us, you are a very grumpy polar bear, and there is absolutely, definitely, 100% no...
Wait, it could hardly be real, that.
Tiger? Says Nora. Hello, says the tiger.
I think maybe the giraffe could be real, because, like, when you see at the, like, pictures, it looks like he's, like, so see there, he's, like, looking up, and then there,
Oh, that's true.
just
Yeah,
looking
you're
down.
right. Yeah, you're right. Maybe he is real. Yeah. Oh, he's very tiny if he is. He looks
Yeah.
a little bit like... I know it's not the same thing, but kind of like the drawings are a little bit like in the Blue Kangaroo books. He looks a
Yeah.
little bit like the Blue Kangaroo, but he's a giraffe.
Yeah.
Tigers don't live in gardens, says Nora. Are you real? I don't know, says the tiger. Are you? Nora thinks about this for a long time. I don't know, she admits. How can you tell? I'm not sure you can, says the tiger. This makes Nora feel a bit funny. I have an idea, says the tiger. If you believe in me, then maybe I'll be real. And if you believe in me, says Nora, then maybe I'll be real too. Deal, says the tiger. Deal, agrees Nora. Come on, says the tiger. I'll give you a ride home. And so Nora and Jeff ride home on the tiger's back. They talk about breakfast and trampolines and the grumpy polar bear.
Breakfast.
He really is extraordinarily friendly for a tiger. Can I come and see you again? Asks Nora when they're near her house. Of course, says the tiger. Whenever you want me, I'll be here. Inside, Nora and Jeff sit down for dinner. There really is a tiger in the garden, isn't there? Says Nora. I'm not sure, replies Grandma. Perhaps it's only a ginger cat. It's hard to tell sometimes. No, says Nora, it's absolutely, definitely a tiger. And you know what? What? Asks Grandma. There's a mermaid in the bath. We had a question in the quiz just now. See if you can kind of... I'll ask you to collect the question. Oh, no, you know. What the colour was of Ariel's bikini in Little Mermaid?
I thought it was red, but
It wasn't red. It wasn't red.
It's green then, right?
It isn't green either. So we'll ask.
God,
We'll
wait.
ask that question of everybody. So the seashell bikini that we all know that mermaids wear seashells to cover their private bits. So in Ariel, the Little Mermaid, what colour? She has a lovely ginger hair, but what colour is the seashell bikini top of Ariel's?
I think it might be blue.
I'm not gonna say. But we'll pose that question now, and people can think about it and we'll give the answer before. Remind me before the end to give the answer to that question. Okay.
Okay.
Right. The foggy forest. Now you've not seen this, but this is beautiful, beautiful. It's 'cause I've got a feeling this might not be in print anymore because it's kind of like I say, all of the pages are like in greaseproof paper. What can this be in the foggy forest?
I think behind there is maybe a bear tree.
So what do you think that's? What's your guess of what that is?
A bear.
A bear? What that?
No,
Yeah. Forget the bear behind that one. What do you think this picture is?
Oh, that's an elf, I think.
An elf sat on what?
Yeah, a mascot.
A little elf all by himself. What can this be in the foggy, foggy forest? So you're thinking bear, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? 3 bears, is it?
Yeah.
3 bears. And I'm guessing, I think that's an ice cream. So I think it's 3 bears eating an ice cream.
It could be an apple.
The 3 brown bears in picnic chairs. You're right, it was an apple. I went with ice cream. Yeah, you're right. It does look like an apple. Yeah, no, exactly. I took that to be an ice cream. The 3 brown bears in picnic chairs. What can this be in the foggy, foggy forest? So what are you going to go for on that one?
That's a trampoline.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fairy stuck in a tree.
I'm guessing she's jumping on the trampoline though. Do you think she's stuck? She could well be stuck in the tree. Where is it?
No,
A fairy queen on a trampoline. Yeah, you're right. Well, that looks. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
What could this be in the foggy, foggy forest? So we're going with the unicorn. I think it's It's going to be a unicorn playing whatever that is. What do you think that is?
A trumpet, I think.
Yeah.
I can't really see very well.
They've just gone with a horn. A unicorn blowing a horn. What can this be in a foggy, foggy forest?
Okay, that's a tree. Gosh, I could think it could be a princess.
Yeah, so she's a princess in a tree or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goldilocks with a box
Oh.
of chocks. Ah, so it's rhyme. Are they all rhymings? A unicorn blowing a horn. Right. Okay. So it's
Yeah,
rhymings.
yeah.
Right. Okay. So Goldilocks with a box of chocks. What can this be in the foggy, foggy forest?
I would say the
So
witch on a broomstick. No, I don't know. I don't really
So,
know it's a
Yeah,
rhyme.
yeah. So a witch. Just trying to think of what
On a
could you rhyme with.
broomstick.
On a witch on a broomstick, something like that.
Witch on a broomstick.
A witch on a broom with an engine, vroom vroom. Oh, that's a bit of a tenuous one, isn't it? So they've rhymed broom with vroom. Yeah, it's fine. better swing it round. Oh, is it open? Can you get it open? Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. You can be part of this. Come on, get. This is our neighbours. They're thieves. Yeah, they're really rubbish thieves. They come during the daytime and steal stuff. And so it was a witch on a broom with an engine, vroom vroom. What can this be in the foggy, foggy forest?
Guessing that's a giant.
It looks like a giant to me. Right, okay. It's a. If I said it was an ogre, what could an ogre be doing that rhymes with ogre? Begins with yeah.
Yoga.
Yoga. Spot on. It's an ogre doing yoga. What can this be in the foggy, foggy forest?
I think that's the 2 sisters.
It's going to be 2 sisters.
I think it's the 2 sisters from Cinderella.
Yeah, okay. Let's go.
Having a water fight, I think. 'Cause that's a gun, I think.
Yeah, I think I'll give you that. Cinderella and Snow White in a water pistol fight.
Cinderella and Snow White. Yeah.
Apparently, yeah. Well, yeah. What can this be in the foggy, foggy forest?
That looks like a train.
I think this is a tenuous one.
I think I
you'd
could
be
just see
struggling
that
with
when you just lift the
Oh, could
pipe.
you?
I think it could be an ice
It's
cream
Little
tray.
Red Riding Hood and her gran selling ice creams from their van.
I thought it was just a nice.
And what can that be over there? I think. Can you really see it? It's kind of like it's nothing specific. I think. Hooray, hooray! Our travelling fair. So all of those characters have all ended up being at the fair.
It's lots of bunnies.
It's pretty though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of, it's all the pages are all like on greaseproof paper. Lush book. Right. Guess how much I love you. Guess how much I love you. Is it a lot or a little? A lot. A lot. Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. It's quite a bit. Quite like you. So Guess How Much I Love You by Sam McBratney. Beautiful pictures by Anita Jerram. Little Nut Brown Hare, who was going to bed, held on tight to Big Nut Brown Hare's very long ears. He wanted to be sure that Big Nut Brown Hare was listening. Guess how much I love you, he said. Oh, I don't think I could guess that, said Big Nut Brown Hare. This much, said Little Nut Brown Hare, stretching out his arms as wide as they could go. Big Nut Brown Hare had even longer arms. But I love you this much, he said. That is a lot, thought Little Nut Brown Hare. I love you as high as I can reach, said Little Nut Brown Hare. I love you as high as I can reach, said Big Nut Brown Hare. That is quite high, thought
Okay,
Little
that's
Nut
like
Brown
there
Hare.
to there.
Yeah, that is a lot higher. He looks a lot littler in that picture. I know he's little. He just looks particularly little there compared to Big Nut Brown Hare. That is quite high, thought Little Nut Brown Hare. I wish I had arms like that. Then Little Nut Brown Hare had a good idea. He tumbled upside down and reached up the tree trunk with his feet. I love you all the way up to my toes, he said. And I love you all the way up to your toes, said Big Nut Brown Hare, swinging him up over his head. I love you as high as I can hop, laughed Little Nut Brown Hare, bouncing up and down. But I love you as high as I can hop, smiled Big Nut Brown Hare, and he hopped so high that his ears touched the branches above. That's good hopping, thought Little Nut Brown Hare. I wish I could hop like that. I love you all the way down the lane as far as the river, cried Little Nut Brown Hare. I love you across the river and over the hills, said Big Nut Brown Hare. That's very far, thought Little Nut Brown Hare. He was almost too sleepy to think any more. Then he looked beyond the thorn bushes out into the big dark night. Nothing could be further than the sky. I love you right up to the moon, he said, and closed his eyes. Oh, that's far, said Big Nut Brown Hare. That is very far. Big Nut Brown Hare settled Little Nut Brown Hare into his bed of leaves. He leant over and kissed him good night. Then he lay down close by and whispered with a smile, I love you right up to the moon and back. There. That's a beautiful book. And we got all these other ones as well, haven't we? So they then did one for all of the 4 seasons. So you've got Guess How Much You Like I Love You in spring, in summer, in autumn and in winter. I think we got all of those, have we?
I think so.
Yeah. And there, and like I say, this is my little guilty pleasure because I found this in a bookshop and they don't make it anymore. Well, I think you can get it on kind of e-book, but you can't get it in kind of like paper form unless you can get it on eBay or something. But beautiful pictures. So the Dancing Tiger. This is our last book. We might come back and do some Christmas ones or something like that nearer Christmas. It's quite sad, this, isn't it? There's a quiet, gentle tiger in the woods below the hill, and he dances on his tiptoes when the world is dreaming still. So you only ever hear him in the silence of the night, and you only ever see him when the full moon's shining bright. One summer night I saw him first, whirling round, and then I heard him gasp in fright. He knew that he'd been found. As he turned to me and whispered, "Please don't mention that I'm here," the laughter in his lightning eyes swept away my fear. "If you will keep my secret and never tell a soul, then you may come and dance with me on nights the moon is whole." So once a month from then till now, I've tiptoed to the wood. We've swirled and swayed among the trees, as Tiger said we could. We've skipped in spring through bluebells, in summer circled slow. We've high-kicked in the autumn leaves and waltzed in winter snow. But now that I am old and grey, my dancing nights are done. I've chosen you, great-grandchild, to take my place. So come. Let me give you Tiger's hands. The moon is Tiger's hand. The moon is rising high. I'll sit and watch you dancing both beneath the star-bright sky. The end. So it's a magical, tender and hauntingly beautiful tale about the power of the imagination and the importance of self-expression. That's the end. That's our last story. Like I say, we will hopefully be kind of back if we kind of if we get some more stories together, and we'll maybe, because goodness knows, well, I think you're back to school week after next, but
Hopefully
that
be in my
spells
class?
the end of lockdown. Don't know. Well, the maximum will be 15, but it depends how many people sign up. If it's anything like the other classes, probably about 6 or 7.
I'd love to be able to be
Something like
5.
But it'll be Monday. It'll be Monday and Tuesday. So
it's
not tomorrow Monday. The following Monday.
And it's better that one of the meanest boys in my class has left.
Okay. Well, we don't say who his name is, just in case. So what we got to answer the quiz question that we gave earlier on. The seashell bikini that Ariel wears is apparently purple. If you kind of that was Katie's question, so I'm sure she's researched it. But they're kind of like the answer she gave for the seashells are purple. I thought red. We wrote down red. Or whether I think me and Mummy were arguing whether it was turquoise or red. But I suppose she's got blue fins, hasn't she, down below? She's got orange hair, so I suppose, yeah, you wouldn't want either of those two colours, so I suppose purple is kind of somewhere in between. So thank you everybody for your support of our little stories. Thank you particularly to Molly and helping me choose all of the stories. I've loved all the weekend stories particularly. It's been nice doing the weekday ones, but for me, the kind of like the weekend choices of books with Molly have been like the special ones. So thank you to the Squirtle for joining me on the weekend ones. Hope everybody gets on okay. If anybody ever wants us to do any more stories specifically, then just kind of ping me, and I'm sure we can do the odds or like special here and there. But in the meantime, everybody get on fine. To the little ones, keep listening to what mummies and daddies are saying, and to all the kind of like the grown-ups, thank you for all the likes and shares and all that sort of stuff. We've really appreciated it. Thank you very much indeed, and we will see you all soon, hopefully in the big wide world outside, when everything start getting back to a little bit of normality. So thank you everybody. TTFN, I'm going to flip it round because I think TTFNs are much better without looking at me. They're much better at looking at Molly. So TTFN from Molly, and let's get everybody from the garden, the two thieves from next door and Mummy. Can we get the thieves from next door and the kind of like Mummy just saying TTFN to everybody? Bye.